Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Superman and Lois, Season 1, Episode 1. It is simply called Pilot. So, we'll start spoiler free because it is in Episode 1. And apologies, this took a few extra days to get to. We really should have had this out on, like, I don't know, Wednesday? Something like that. But obviously things got pushed back. We're here now. You finally get to talk about it. The extra length pilot, which is Superman from Supergirl, but with some tweaks and changes, which were hinted at, I believe, when Crisis happened. At least there was the hint that they had two boys all of a sudden.
I know you're telling me that it's the same Superman, and obviously it's the same Lois. It feels like a completely different universe.
It feels different. That said, though, I still kind of expect them to have Benoist show up at some point in the season to sort of pass the torch, just before her show finishes.
I would have said so, but I don't think they're allowed to cross shooting schedules with restrictions that are in place.
Well, maybe she'll do an episode next season when she's not got her own show. She'll just come in for a...
Oh, she can guest star all she wants then, yeah.
I'm sure she'll guest star next season then. But
do it as a reverse as what they did on her show. First episode of, was it season 2?
Superman.
3?
Yeah, that was season 2, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the big draw for season 2. So... yeah, the premise of this is, and the pilot kind of gets us there by the end, but the idea that Clark and Lois are moving to Smallville with their teenage sons, and, well, that's it, they're moving out of the farmhouse, and everything else was kind of a mystery, at least to us. I wasn't really paying that much attention. We saw some of the trailers that came out that were very stylistic and, dare I say, Man of Steel-ish in their visuals a little bit.
Yep.
So we'll dig into this. Obviously, if you're unfamiliar with us, we do a DC Comics podcast called Comics from the Multiverse with our friend Matt. We have reviewed a lot of DC TV in the past, although we did quite a lot of it after Crisis because, quite frankly, most of it was just too bad to continue to torture ourselves with. But there were bright spots here or there, and Tyler Hoechlin as Superman was one of those bright spots, typically, when he popped up.
Consistently, yeah.
Yeah. He was kind of much like Benoist, actually, because Benoist was very good at Supergirl, but it was just the writing completely let her down. Like, everything in that show just was tedious to get through, but it was never because of her.
Right, and Hodgson never had that problem because he was never there quite enough to have to suffer.
Now, he was only there for the special big event style things, and because of that, he never suffered from the... at least the tedious writing. Maybe there was some bad writing still, but... it was at least doing things. It was like, oh, we're doing big event-y spectacle things, so...
yeah, it wasn't the, let's spin our wheels with pointless relationship drama 6.
Yeah. So this is him and Lois getting their own show. They call it Superman and Lois. It almost feels like an unintentional throwback to Lois and Clark as a title.
It does, yeah.
Just swapped around. And there's even, dare I say, a reference to Lois and Clark in this in the first couple of minutes. There's a little... prologue montage of basically just I landed in Kansas, I'm from Krypton, blah blah blah. He's doing his little thing, and there's a scene where he's got the black emblem, right? He's got the golden age,
the Fleischer suit.
Yeah, the Fleischer suit, and he talks to this kid who saves he catches the thing in the car and comes over to the kid, gives him his hat back, and the kid's like, nice outfit, and Hoechlin still got it because he responds, he sounds like Superman, he smiles, he's like, thanks, my mum made it for me. That line is from Lois and Clark. If that may have been the pilot, I think, actually.
It might be, yeah.
Where when he first comes to save people on the space shuttle, one of the kids who was going up on the mission says, hey, nice suit. And he's like, yeah, mum made it for me. And that was a big thing in that show. There was a whole montage of making of the suit. So they're establishing it in this universe still. Martha Kent did actually create the original super suits, presumably out of some Kryptonian material, but still, there you go.
Yeah, no, it was nice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of references in that opening little prologue. I mentioned the Fleischer suit there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some references to the Donna movie. Just a handful of various Superman stuff.
There's references throughout. There's the Schuster mines at one point that someone mentions. Even one of the first things we see him do, which is to cool down a reactor, he freezes a lake and like lifts up like the giant new like iceberg that he's made. That I'm pretty sure that's directly out of Superman 3, I think it was, that happened in.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
And I unapologetically kind of love Superman 3, so I'm happy to give that a shout out. So
It's definitely in one of those movies. I couldn't tell you if it was 3 or 4.
I think I think it's 3. Hey, 4's another huge step down. Let's not pretend that 3 and 4 are on the same level here.
Look, I'm not saying they're on the same level. I'm just saying in my head they occupied the very similar space. In that I don't think about them very often.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, obviously we'll keep this spoiler free for the most part. But as with a lot of pilots, there's not a lot of things in I think the pilot. There's a couple of there's two big things to spoil. Let's say, just off the top of my head.
One of which, if you happen to follow our TV news, back when we were learning details about this, I predicted in the description of that. Oh, so I kind of laughed when I was right.
Yeah. It tries to misdirect with one thing, and then it's kind of obvious that it's going the other way. But, yeah. So, I mean, I guess we're at the point where I should just ask the question: what did you think of Superman and Lois episode 1?
I actually thought it was surprisingly quite good, given everything was stacked against it. It's a CW superhero show at this point. It was so Man of Steel inspired, at least in its visuals, clearly, and. Yeah, it's not perfect. Get that out of the way, but
not perfect.
Surprisingly good.
It was better than it had any right to be. Is kind of how I felt. There's one kind of because he is being very Superman the way he talks to people, and there's not a lot of it in this episode, but whenever he does talk to the kid at the start or he has these moments, he does feel very Superman, and that's good. They've kind of nailed what Superman's supposed to feel like. In terms of like something feeling like it's really grim and dark, and it's like they're trying to like do a dark story in Superman's world. There's I'll get to the context and spoilers, but there's a scene where someone brings up people cooking meth and like blowing up their own house, and I'm like, whoa, this is really dark all of a sudden. What are you doing?
yeah, there is that, and like a lot of the aesthetics of like Kryptonian stuff are clearly inspired by Man of Steel, but that's, I mean, it's not the worst element of that movie. Yeah.
No. I mean, some of the visual effects. I mean, I did kind of chuckle a couple of times. That like broad daylight looked a bit too dark. Like it looked a little bit too moody, and I'm like, why is this looking so moody? Like, you know, it's fine for sunshine to look like sunshine.
Yeah. It's clearly a very stylized show, which I kind of appreciate because it does feel different. I CW show.
Yeah, I appreciate it in certain moments, and I appreciate how, you know, majestic he might look with the cape flowing in one moment, but then there's other moments where I'm like, okay, you're overdoing it here, or you're trying to be moody. I will say the music's fine, but there's several moments in the episode where it felt like it really wanted to go into the John Williams Superman score, and it kept swerving and going in another direction, and every time it took me out of it. It was particularly a moment where he's picking up a truck, and it sounds like the first note. It's like I
know exactly what it is, because I actually really like that piece of music that they did do in the end. It is very clear that when they shot this and they're putting it together in the edit, they had the John Williams theme as a temp track, and they were like, get us somewhere legally close to this.
What do you mean legally? It's Warner Brothers. They own it.
I know, but it still feels like that was the direction. It's like, do this, but not quite. But it's still good in its own right as well.
Good but distracting, and it really got me thinking about how some pieces of music transcend whatever they were written for. And Superman's music is just one of those things where it doesn't matter how many versions of Superman you throw at me, the Superman theme is da na 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 da da da, and
I even like a lot of other Superman music, like Man of Steel. I love the music for that movie. I think it's still great, but it's not the Superman theme.
No, so it was distracting because it felt like it really wanted to be that at multiple points, and that was the one that really stuck out to me the most. And it felt like it almost did the first note, and then it just pivoted away from it, and it felt like it clearly wants to be the Superman theme. Stop chickening out, right? You can get permission to use it. It is umbrella company. It's all one place. I'm not saying they can just do it without asking. Obviously, the paperwork has to be signed, blah blah blah. But I'm pretty sure they'll give it to them if they really want it.
They're saving it for the final episode of the season.
Very possibly. They very possibly are. But
if they didn't do it in the first one, it'll be in one of the last ones, or they're just never going to use it.
Honestly, the only critique I have as far as the Superman suit goes, because it has changed a little bit. I do love the tucked in cape. I'm a much bigger fan of the tucked in cape than the attached to the shoulders thing that he had on Supergirl. Is that it feels like they've puffed up his chest unnaturally, and it looks a little bit weird and silly.
It's a little bit of a padded suit, yeah.
Yeah. But it feels like, I'd rather it was just more natural fitting to him rather than this extra bulky chest.
Is clearly not bulked up enough yet. Maybe come season 2. They can all right, you've done some work now. We can cut back on the padding.
I don't know. It was just one of those little things that took me out at the moment. But obviously he is pretty good in the role. There's a couple of things. Obviously, a lot of this episode revolves around the debate: should we tell our sons who you are? And this was something we kind of made fun of in the trailer, because it was kind of like, wait, you've been living in a house with him for your whole lives, and he's never once, like, I don't know, just not, he stepped out the shower into the hallway, and one of them is just standing there, and is like, ah, shit, they've seen me, kind of thing.
Yeah, it does a good enough job in making me buy it enough in this episode.
It doesn't feel silly in the episode. It felt really silly when it was condensed into a trailer, and when I stop and think about it, it's still kind of silly. But the episode does a good job of not making it overtly silly to my face.
It's one of those things where even when they see him without the glasses, which obviously they have, there's like this disconnect that there's no possibility in their heads that their dad is Superman. So it doesn't even occur to them, right?
Our dad's lame. He can't be Superman. He's too lame.
I mean, to be fair, one of them also thinks Superman's really boring. Like, actively said Superman's boring. Yeah,
the edgy one, who's playing Mortal Kombat versus DC, which is actually kind of an ancient game at this point, because it's a PS3 360 game. But he's sitting there playing it. And I get it. Superman's a big enough thing in this world that they've put him in a Mortal Kombat game as a guest star.
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, it's fine. We can do it. It would have been really funny though if like Supergirl popped up and beat him up or something like that on screen as a little wink or a nudge or something. I don't know. Anyway, because I guess that's the weird thing. Okay, you can't have Supergirl for logistical reasons. It feels a bit weird to me that when they find out he's Superman, they go, wait, does this mean our big cousin Kara's also? Like no one thinks of that or says anything.
Which is why I say that this ultimately kind of feels like a different universe. Yeah. There is no reference to any wider Arrowverse stuff whatsoever.
Or even, that's the thing though, they're going to tie it in as time goes on. So that's why I don't think it even matters that it feels like a different universe right now. That's almost a moot point, because they're definitely going to do it. And even if they don't necessarily think of Kara, because I presume they've met Kara. But on the other hand, wouldn't one of the first questions be, wait, who's Supergirl then? If you're Superman, who's Supergirl? Like, you'd think it'd be a question that might come up.
You would possibly think that, yes.
And maybe they do say this is technically another Earth, and this is not exactly the Superman that we've been with. But they set it up in Crisis. They said, hey, you've got 2 sons now. So we have to assume it is him.
I know. It's so weird.
Yeah. That's it. That's not the only thing that Crisis changed. Morgan Edge's face has also completely changed.
It's a little disappointing, this one.
Because they've started talking about Morgan Edge, and he's not like a character who's on screen really, but you see him on like a TV in the background, and they're talking about him at the Daily Planet early on, and I'm like, oh, are we going to see Adrian Pastar? Is he going to pop up? Because that's who it was in Supergirl. And he's just some like generic actor in the background. But they've probably not even cast him yet. That's probably maybe just out of focus. But
I mean, that specific shot might have been, but I bet they have cast him, because I guarantee he's showing up pretty soon.
It probably is, because he's like buying property in Smallville, and that's part of the.
He's clearly the human villain for the season, right?
Yes, technically. Well, more than that in spoilers. More than that in spoilers.
He's Lois's villain for the season.
I'll accept it. Yeah, so as far as characters go, obviously Superman and Lois, they're kind of a known quantity. They're still playing, the roles they are. And it is nice that it does seem just as evenly distributed, because it was a little bit concerning that from the trailers that maybe it'll focus more on the teens. I'd say it's very 50-50. It's still very much Superman and Lois' show, but the 2 teenagers are still definitely important.
It's obviously the teens are part of their life, So of course they have a reasonable amount of screen time.
They are the third and fourth main characters. This is just how it is. I will say what impressed me is that I got worried from the trailer that, okay, we've got the hotshot brother who, Jonathan, he's the one who's good at the football, he's the popular kid, everyone loves him. And then Jordan, who's kind of the delinquent one, the one who's angry at his dad, all that stuff. It was worrying that, we're going to do this type of teen drama. I actually felt almost relieved when they started openly talking about him having like a diagnosis early on. He's got mental health issues. I thought, this is actually quite ballsy and different. And as the episode played out, I felt like the teen drama felt less like just typical CW teen drama and more like they were trying to do something a bit more nuanced and grounded.
No, I actually agree. I think I'm sure over time this will devolve into CW teen drama because this is the CW after all. But right now, it's definitely not as bad as what it sounded like it was going to be on paper. And like I say, I don't know exactly what he was diagnosed with, but like I say, he's on medication. They mention it a couple of times. It comes up, which means inherently they're a bit more sensitive about it. They're not just flippant, with the normal teen drama. It almost keeps them in check, right? From a writing perspective.
Yeah, it makes them try to treat it with a level of respect that perhaps they wouldn't show it if they were just saying, teenagers are crazy and they do crazy things.
It's not just stupid teenage angst. It's no, this kid actually needs help, and we're gonna look at it through that lens. Yeah, which is a bit better, a bit more interesting as well.
Yeah. So the actual episode, they don't actually make the choice to stick around in Smallville till fairly late on, and that's not a spoiler. That's the entire premise of the show. It's clear we're going to be moving here. The cynical part of me does think it's a bit funny that we can't just have a Superman show set in Metropolis, because the last time we had a Superman show, it was Smallville, and the whole thing, would you believe it, was set in Smallville. I mean, that's okay. Technically, it was more Metropolis in the last few seasons or whatever, but just the idea that, wait, we're doing a Superman show. Where are they going to be? Oh, they're on the farm again. Oh, okay. Again. All right. But they have to live somewhere.
Into a narrative here, at least, as well. It's not just Smallville.
It's funny because it never bothered me in the comics when they went to live on a farm when they had Jonathan. It was never a big deal. It was kind of nice and sweet. But in the comics, it didn't feel like they were restricted to the state. Whereas it feels like this is more of a TV thing where the farm's easy to shoot. It's easy to have a location like a farm and always use it whenever they want. It's more of a convenience thing, potentially. And I'm not saying it necessarily is here, because maybe they come up with the story ideas and they wanted to come here for the themes and for going back to the community and getting the roots in and all the rest of it. And let's face it, Superman can fly off to do whatever from wherever he's staying. He doesn't need to be located anywhere central.
But, there is almost certainly some behind-the-scenes logistical reasons as well.
Yes. And probably very helpful as well, continuing to shoot during a pandemic for probably at least another year is probably helpful in a big open farm versus lots of little rooms.
Yeah, lots of space. Obviously, the interiors are still room-sized, but lots of outdoors to play with.
Yeah, so as what it is. As for other characters, Lana is a character in the show, as a old friend of Clark's, someone who he dated in high school. She has a husband who's kind of a shitbag. He's very quickly unlikable. And then they have a daughter who has a maybe will they won't they thing with one of the sons, which makes sense. So
kind of that is exactly what you would write if you were doing this, for a TV show though. So there's nothing wrong with it yet, but it's just kind of, it's exactly what you expect.
Are you upset that they took away the gingerness from Lana?
Stings a little bit.
Now, of course, TV audiences are like, wait, but Lana wasn't ginger in Smallville. Well, no, she was not. But in the comics, Lana has always been ginger.
just once, it would be nice to get a ginger cast and not. Like, we've lost every ginger, all of them, at least from comics.
Yes, from comics. Yes, the gingers have all been either recast as other races or, in this case, just given dark hair. No ginger, just give her dark hair.
Yeah.
But
don't wrong. Hey. I mean, I'm not really that mad because, maybe she's a very good actress. I don't know. We haven't actually seen enough from Lana in this to have a good handle on how she is yet.
She feels that she's going to be there mainly as Sarah's mother rather than her own, a character who has her own plots that much.
It'll be a combination of that, and I think we'll probably link in with Lois's side of things more so with Edge.
That's very possible, yeah. So, I mean, it's very, Sam Lane's also around, who does know who Superman is, knows who his son-in-law is.
It was really interesting because as soon as Sam Lane he calls for Superman right at the start, and I was like, oh, okay, he's open with Superman. I didn't immediately leap to, oh, he knows who he is. I just thought, oh, he's on board with Superman, and I'm like, that's even in its own right fairly interesting because that's definitely not always the case. Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, all right, say hi to Lois, sort of thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's nice.
Yeah, I went to the grandkids camping, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll talk to Lois about it. Like, there's a casual thing.
It's different, but I don't hate it.
It's different, but at the same time, he doesn't feel like they've betrayed who he is, though, because there's still moments where he still feels like he was against the marriage in the first place, and he's accepted it now. It's okay, that was her choice, she's made her choice. But he does sort of get snipey about certain things when...
It's a bit like, don't say I didn't warn you, sort of thing.
Yeah, so he's still Sam Lane, he's still... He also seems to have this opinion that Superman can't have a normal life. Like, no, you should be on call all times to help us out because that's what you're here for.
Definitely feels like it plays into, again, Sam Lane being, uber military man. It's like, no, this is what you do. This comes first. Which is definitely how he views himself as well. I don't think that's him being hypocritical. And
just before we get to spoilers, I'll just give some spoilers three thoughts on the the big villain that they kind of tease in this episode, who's causing there's a series of events at various reactors. Some enhanced individual is setting up these things, maybe even to test Superman, if not to try and kill Superman potentially. And we get this big great sequence early on. I mentioned the lake being frozen and then dropping the ice in, and it's a big heroic moment, and it looks quite good. It was a nice sequence. The actual tease of how, and then sort of the look when they're fighting at one point later in the episode, and then kind of your stinger at the end, kind of teasing things. I will say, I thought the general kind of fighting with this villain felt a lot like goofier, and not that I didn't like it, but it felt like it was kind of contrasting with the otherwise grounded tone of the rest of the episode to me. Like, that's like, it's not that I don't want this in a Superman show, him fighting this guy who's got like jetpack stuff on and whatever.
Do you know what he looks like? The actual design of it. Yeah. Because I couldn't stop thinking. It looks like Master Chief from Halo.
Bit of Master Chief, yeah. There's a bit of Master Chief. But, it's just this kind of like fight with like a jetpack / Iron Man suit type thing, flying around and punching and whatnot at one point in the episode. And I'm like, and he's doing like this, like, not evil monologue, but he's talking to Superman before they start fighting, and it sounds very sinister, and
taunting him.
And it's very comic booky, and that's okay, obviously, it's Superman. But it does feel like a more grounded approach to the villain might have fit the rest of the show better.
It's interesting because I think what they're actually doing with the villain fits in with that grounded approach. It's just the visual of the fighting that I think looks a bit goofier, like you say.
And it's not that it wasn't fun, it's just that from a tone perspective it felt a little different to the rest of it.
It's a bit jarring. It's, again, like I say, it's not bad. I actually like it. I enjoyed it. It's just a bit jarring with the tone of everything else.
Yeah. So I wanted to sort of get some opinion on that before we go to spoilers and actually talk about the details. So we'll get to spoilers now. So full spoilers for Lois and Superman and Lois. I'm too used to Lois and Clark. Lois been getting top billing. Superman and Lois, which, as much as I like it as a callback to Lois and Clark, it's kind of an awkward title.
It is. It's very regressive.
It feels like
it's a mouthful.
Like, Lois and Clark sounded good because it was their two normal names together, right?
Yeah.
It had a flow to it. Superman and Lois is weird because it's like, if it was Superman and obviously this isn't Lois, but if it was Superman and Wonder Woman, it would sound good because it's the two superhero names and it sounds like a pair. Superman and Lois, if anything, Superman and Lois Lane sounds better because it's got more of a flow because it goes down again.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I think part of what it is having that ending on one syllable. Like, if you do it, like you say, that was Lois and Clark. It's the ending on the one syllable that I think does it. Like this here, if you put Superman and Clark, sounds better than Superman and Lois because it's the extra mouthful, that extra syllable on the end that stumbles.
She called it Superman and Sons.
See, that works, yeah.
It works. I mean, not that I want to cut Lois out the naming, because she does deserve to be in the title, but it just sounds better. It's probably a sound thing I'm complaining about here, that's all.
Just the sheer phonetics of it all.
Yeah. But anyway, full spoilers for episode 1 of Superman and Lois. So yeah, the villain appears to be a Lex Luthor from another Earth that was destroyed during Crisis. Because there's a line when they're fighting and they're basically into space at this point after the jetpack flying around stuff. Because at first we think he's a superhuman of some kind, but then as we see the jetpack, it's like, well, he's not actually flying, he's got jetpack stuff.
And then in your head you're going, some sort of suit. This feels very Luthor-esque. Yeah,
but of course when he takes the helmet off, we don't see his face of course, but at the end of the episode when he takes his helmet off, the little stinger at the end, it's a black man who's playing this Luthor, from the looks of it. But there is a line when he's talking to him and he stabs him with the kryptonite after the big flying scene, and there's a really good scene where he's fallen when he's stabbed with the kryptonite and he's able to pull it out and just regain his flight, like before he crashes and makes a crater in the middle of a road.
And it's a nice touch again, because he's like right above the windshield of a car.
Yeah.
And the guy inside's like, "What's going on?" And someone just kind of just like smiles and waves. So there's like, "Right, see ya."
And it's that moment. That's Superman. That moment there.
It's and that's what shows that there's promise in this as a Superman thing, where they get it. They clearly do. That these moments are in there, and they're not like buried in there either. They're pretty consistent. I mean, it's one of the first things we see as well.
Yeah. They don't misunderstand Superman. The only characterization complaint I really have is that when Lois first brings up, like, maybe we should tell the boys because it's a lot of stress on Jordan we have to keep lying to him about why you're not here, why you're missing things, and he's like, no, if one of them blab, like, everyone will know who I am. It almost sounded selfish the way he said it, and I'm sure it's not really meant that way, but it comes off the way it's written as a little selfish sounding to me.
No, I think it's quite intentional, maybe not selfish, but it's a lack of trust in the kids, right? And I think that is inherently supposed to be a character flaw. I think that is intentional.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, he does agree by the end of the episode that they should have told him sooner.
And by the end, he's like, "Do you know what? Maybe I haven't been the best dad. I've been spending too much time being Superman, right?"
Yeah. So fair play, but it did strike me at the time. But anyway, he's in space with at the time masked villain. And the villain says something which makes it sound like he's from Krypton, which really stuck out to me, because I was like, wait, why have you got a jetpack then if you're from Krypton? Like, what'd you the jetpack for? But he says something like, I'm because it almost sounded like they were from the same dying world, but I think the actual specific line was more, I'm also from a dying world, or something to that effect. So
yes, like also the last of a world or something like that.
Yeah, last of a world. So his world is gone. So when the ship calls him, Captain or Commander Luthor at the end,
it's Captain.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so he's from another Earth where, like, there was a Superman who he did rival with, but now his Earth is gone, and either he's travelled to or he's wound up on this Earth, this universe, and he's picking a fight with Superman, and
it's very Lex Luthor.
Yeah, so it's interesting. And obviously, Superman doesn't know this yet. This is all something we see at the end, away from Clark and all that, but it is interesting.
It is. I'm down to see it, and he's out of kryptonite now, so he's got to find more.
I do. The only thing I dislike about it is that it's a little bit eye rolly to end your new Superman TV show pilot with, "Oh, it's a Luthor." Like, there's a little bit of that in me, but I do at least appreciate that it's a Luthor from a different Earth that Clark won't recognize. Is kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I like that as well, and the idea that this Luthor has, this disguise almost of just the sheer fact that Superman doesn't know who he is. I think there's a very clear reason he intentionally stays masked, and I think like Superman even points out, he's always using lead shielding. He's actively hiding himself from Superman.
I'm pretty sure Morgan Edge was still white in the background, but if I hadn't seen that, I might have assumed that when Morgan Edge shows up, it'll be this guy. It'll be this Luthor pretending to be Morgan Edge.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think Morgan Edge is his own person.
But I would have potentially kind of speculated that had we not already seen enough of Morgan Edge to know that he was a white dude. But so that's intriguing. Obviously, the big thing in the episode is the kids getting closer to finding out. Ultimately having an accident in the barn, which, by the way, they make a line of mentioning this, and obviously they even mention that Martha Kent does die in this episode, which is totally fine, might I add. Like, there is nothing wrong with Martha dying when Superman's already old enough to have 2 teenage sons. Like, no, she's spent her time being Ma Kent. She can go peacefully now.
I mean, and Pa Kent's already dead at this point, but again, that's not uncommon in Superman stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very Superman the movie, how they sort of portray it.
Sure, specifically here, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not uncommon for Superman mythos. But yeah, so the router for the internet for some reason is up. This is
in the barn.
That's what's really convoluted, just to sort of get them to climb up to this weird place in the barn for this accident.
Like the only place they can get a good signal, like they can spread the signal out from there. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, why would you need it out there? Why not just have it in the house? Like, is it like a concern if you're on a farm that you want to make sure you can have signal in the barn? Is that?
Well, I mean, possibly, but I would say a more realistic concern, and maybe I'm way off base here, but how much of our daily lives these days is smart tech, right? How much stuff is connected? Like, the realistically doesn't need to be connected to the internet, but like, you can get a fridge, you can get your lights, anything that can all be connected.
Are you suggesting that farming equipment is?
I'm willing to bet there is some farming equipment that might be connected that you might want to take out into the field, and you want that router, to be in a nice place.
And how long has it been since someone's actually been working on this farm, doing farming?
That's a good question.
Martha's been a widow for years.
People keep it running. I don't know.
I don't get the impression she was out there ploughing.
Nor do I, admittedly. Maybe it just gives good coverage. If you want to be wandering around the fields, not even the fields, just wandering around, the outside, maybe having it there gives good coverage to the house and the surrounding area.
I did like the little moment where when they're at the bank and they find out that there was a new mortgage taken out in the house, and it was because Martha was helping pay off other people's debts, because she was just too kind.
Yeah, and as I think it was Lana that puts it, it's like, everyone in town knew if you had a problem, you went to Martha Kent and she'll help you out.
Yeah, so it was kind of sweet, and I think it's maybe a little on the nose about how much of a hero she was to everyone around her, but I do kind of like the idea of Clark not knowing anything about this and finding out after the fact. Like, it wasn't even something she told her superhero son. It was almost like she was inspired by her son's good deeds to try and do something herself, but didn't want to brag about it because that defeated the purpose of doing it. So it's just this he finds out after the fact that
but everyone else obviously knew
in town. Yeah, she was a known local hero. So I like that. That was a sweet little touch. But the big thing is the kids. They have this accident where Jordan falls down and all these big metal beams start falling down on top of them. But they're surprisingly okay. And obviously this gets Clark and Lois, very unbreakable. Like, well, one of them took that hit and it wasn't a big deal.
And
so
they were already speculating that maybe John had powers because he's very athletic. Like, the school they're in, they talk about how, it's a fairly prestigious school for its sports program, and he's like the first freshman maybe ever to make, starting quarterback or whatever it was. And it's like, maybe there's some little bit of enhancement going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's almost like, and I do kind of like that thread later on where, like, they legitimately thought that the only reason why he was any good is because he might have some extra abilities. It's not that he's actually that good.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, but obviously we all know it's going to be Jordan. It's going to be the one who's...
Literally, this is what I predicted, like 8 months ago when we heard just the description.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who's mopey, he's the one who has the... And I think the idea that the one with the mental health issues has superpowers is far more interesting anyway to go
definitely.
into.
And I love that when he finds out, he's like, how could you not tell me this? And maybe this has to do with my issues, is to do with these powers, and they're like, well, why would it be? I don't have any. It's like, yeah, but I'm half human.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Like, I was thinking that is like, yeah, but these two kids are the first half human, half Kryptonians that have ever existed. Who knows what the Kryptonian half is doing to the human half of his biology and whatnot?
Maybe there actually is something. I mean, honestly, I hope there's not. I hope that he just has very human problems.
It's just bad luck. Yeah, he has.
Right, and like he almost has a hope that this would just explain it, and this, because it's easier to explain for him. I think it's a better choice for the writing to be like, no, it's actually unrelated.
I think I have faith that it's going that way, just because based on the conversations he has with Sarah about her also being a little, I've had to take pills, I've had, a rough time. Like that bonding over that to me feels like they're leaning more in the direction of maybe he'll convince himself it is this for a bit, but ultimately it's going to be a lesson about tackling this kind of subject, which is not something I would expect to get from a Superman show. So I mean, credit where credit is due for putting in a genuinely interesting new element that is very different.
Think what I will say is, while I didn't expect necessarily from a Superman show, it strangely is kind of what I've come to expect from CW. I don't necessarily mean that like, we don't praise their writing quality a lot, but I think they're very good at diversity of all kinds. In
sure.
And this is just another step of that of, okay, we're showcasing someone else and kind of giving some representation to that, and literally giving them powers, making them the next potential hero. I think CW are very good at that stuff.
This is potentially be a very powerful story if he lives with these problems but is still able to be a hero. That's a very positive message to be sending out to the world. So,
which I have to assume is where it's going to go in the long run. I think making him the villain would be the worst possible thing they could do, because I think that's the obvious easy temptation is, edgy teen gets the powers, goes off the deep end, right? And I'm not saying they can't have moments of him doing something wrong, but he absolutely cannot be the villain.
It's also very Superman, and especially Superman with John in the comics, which is at the end when Jordan's, because he goes up to Jonathan and says, "Hey, like, I'm sorry you don't have any powers," and he's like, "That's cool, whatever." Like, at least I know all my talents are natural. Like, I'm actually this good.
Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there will be some resentment along the way,
some friction at some point, sure, but he's not just immediately like, "Oh yeah, it's the superpowers and I'm over here with like a chump."
I appreciate that he did at first, like that was his initial reaction.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you, right? And especially as someone who has brothers, things like that, I can absolutely buy. That there is some real tension at first.
No, but it's actually very Superman for not after too long for him to actually be kind of mature about it and say, "You know what? No, I understand," and like it's fine. And it's just part of the messaging of Superman in general is to be understanding and.
Yeah, I do think the kids are fairly likable. Like for all the shit that we can give them, and there is some of that sibling friction, of course, and they're very different people. But when those beams are falling on Jordan, Jonathan, thinking he might have powers, maybe he's starting to speculate something. I think, or is that before, after? But either way, he jumps right in and tries to help.
Oh no, that's after, because at this point they don't start speculating anything until after they've survived this, and that's what gets Jordan thinking. Yeah. Oh, but I think
even without knowing, he jumps in and tries to get him out of the way.
It's Jonathan that jumps in to save Jordan. Yeah.
That's what I'm on about. That's my point. Is like
it's selfless.
He has tended to be the one that we would say is a bit more of a dick to his brother, right? At that point of the episode,
that's the thing. He is kind of a dick in a sort of normally brother making fun of brother kind of way. But when anyone like threatens him or dangers him, he steps in as big brother like immediately. When they're at the party later on, and this guy comes up to punch him because he kisses Sarah, and it turns out that Sarah's got a boyfriend. She maybe didn't mention that, and she should have. But this guy's picking a fight, and Jonathan, without even thinking about it, jumps in and is like, "No, back off, leave my brother alone. What are you doing?" Like, like, no, it's not happening. Which, of course, leads up to the big scene where they're getting beat up, and Jordan gets so angry that his heat vision kicks in, and it just, it makes the because they've got like a bonfire already going. It just makes that explode basically, and everyone's kind of like, and Sarah's father, Lana's husband, is a firefighter, so he ends up there later on. And it's it's kind of this is their big moment where they find out and they have to explain it to them. And I actually can't remember if it's it's before this. They've already found the ship in the bar and they've had the confrontation with Clark. Then they go to the party and this is what makes Clark come back, because
Because at this point, Jonathan thinks he's the one with powers, and that's why he jumps straight in as well. He's like, you don't want to test me today.
Yes, because maybe I'll actually have even more strength than I thought I did.
Yeah,
not quite. And you do actually worry, because even though I was convinced it was Jordan that was going to have the powers, if not both of them, there is a moment when he pushes the other guy back, and part of me was thinking, wait, is he going to accidentally break his arms or something? Because he's going to push him so hard that, without realizing his strength, that he's going to end up injuring someone. And that's not the way it went, but for a second I thought, he did get him knocked down quite quick. I mean, not like superhuman levels, but certainly effectively.
Right, it does enough to sell that, no, he's a very, athletic guy anyway, that I buy that, he can do this without any sort of powers. It's not, like, unrealistic. It's not unfeasible, the amount he's pushing him about.
Yes, but anyway, so Clark and Lois decide to stay in Smallville, so they've got time to spend with their sons before they completely grow up. And it's not really brought up in the episode, but I also think, it's also a good place to, it's a bit secluded, so you can maybe train Jordan to use his powers in peace and quiet, away from prying eyes, that kind of thing. It makes a bit more sense. Actually, that was the other thing I got a chuckle about, is when they go to see Lana, it's like, man, it's so lucky your kid survived that. That stuff like that happens around all the time around here. I remember once Pete fell asleep at the wheel, and we passed out and we woke up and everything was fine. The car was miraculously, it was all crushed, but all three of us were miraculously unharmed. And Lois just gives Clark this look like, well.
It's like, how about that?
Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's annoyingly quite good, this show. At least this episode.
I kind of want to watch episode 2. I'm not going to lie.
Me too, and that annoys me because I was ready to write this off. I was ready to I don't need to get invested in CW superhero shows ever again. They're all going to be terrible. You know what, if this is good, and then when this is done, Stargirl comes on, we have one rotating good CW show, that's okay. That's true. We know Stargirl summer, right?
Summer, yeah, it's coming sometime. There's no date yet, but it's sometime in the summer.
Yeah, that's cool.
So hey, maybe this being so separate is a good thing for us ultimately. And it's the sort of thing where even though we've dropped the other shows, we watch so much of them that we're never going to be that like confused if someone shows up.
Yeah, we're never going to be that out of the loop.
Yeah. So, hey. So I guess we're back for episode 2 next week.
Didn't see that coming a few days ago, did you?
No, when the director of the pilot was quoted as calling Man of Steel the gold standard, I immediately got a little bit worried and thought, I don't know.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I say visual style is taking a lot from Man of Steel, but that's not the worst thing ever. Like, I don't hate the visual style of that movie.
It's probably Zack Snyder's least ugly film. I'll give it that. Because I think a lot of Zack Snyder's films are just downright ugly. Man of Steel, it could do with a little bit more saturation in places.
I think the Krypton section at the start is downright gorgeous.
But yes, but the majesty, him floating there, the cape, we'll see.
It comes down to, yes, they're clearly inspired by Man of Steel with the visuals, but they actually understand Superman, so it's okay. You can have those visuals if you understand Superman.
Yeah, so it was a good first episode. Not perfect, but by any means, and there's definitely the potential for 100 different things to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's really true of any shows. We're only really emphasizing that more than anything because we have so much experience with the DC shows on CW.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're kind of suckers for Superman, and you give us a good Superman on screen for the first time in God knows how long, on a regular basis, because obviously this Superman obviously showed up, in Supergirl. Then if you give us a good show, in that we're more inclined to want to stick around.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Superman and Lois. By all means, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. You can like and subscribe, which is very important on YouTube. It helps with the algorithm, and that's how YouTube dictates success, and hopefully leads us to more viewers. So please do, if you like the content. And you can also, of course, support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?